Hi, everybody. I'm Maureen Droney with the Recording Academy Producers and Engineers Wing. Welcome to the Forum, the pe.wing's ongoing series on matters of interest and importance to our members. Today's forum, as you know now, titled Let's Get Physical, is about the ongoing popularity, success, and challenges related to the recording industry's physical products. Tracking sales for vinyl, CDs, and cassettes have been, well, let's just say complicated. But per the RIAA, here are a couple of stats. Vinyl sales increased about 300% between 2016 and 2023, and 2024 was the 18th consecutive year of growth for vinyl sales. In 2024, total physical product revenues, which I believe includes CDs and cassettes, were about $2 billion and also were up versus 2023, 5%. And now from 24 to 2025, there seems to have been a 50% surge in vinyl orders. So 18 consecutive years of growth. That's not nothing. And our guest today will discuss various aspects of this phenomenon, which when it started about 20 years ago, came as a big surprise. Just a couple of reminders, we'll be leaving time for questions, most likely at the end of the presentation. So please put your questions in the Zoom Q&A function. And here today are our regular forum hosts, two very accomplished engineer producers, Glenn Lorbiecki in Seattle, and Jordan Hamlin in Nashville. So take it away, Jordan and Glenn.
Hey, everybody. I'm particularly excited about this one. How are you feeling, Glenn?
Pretty good. I mean, this is all encompassing technology, old school, new school, and we've got some amazing insight coming from our participants today.
Totally. It's the quality of the perspectives that we have here that it's just exciting to have these people who have such different and boots on the ground insight into what's happening right now. And I'm really excited to hear their perspectives. Should we bring them in?
Yeah, let's. I just wanted to make a note and check on your physical products there in Nashville because it's like 150 degrees there today. Am I correct? Yeah.
They're all melted. Yeah.
They're melted. That's what I thought.
Yeah. We had a good run though.
Awesome.
Yes,
without further ado, I'd like to introduce Cheryl Pawelski. Cheryl's a four-time Grammy Award-winning producer. She's been entrusted with preserving, curating, and championing some of music's greatest legacies. She's produced or supervised recordings, reissues, and box sets for Wilco, Stax, Hank Williams, Aretha Franklin, Rod Stewart, Willie Nelson, the Beach Boys, and many more. In addition to producing releases for Omnivore Recordings, Cheryl is a sought-after producer and resource for artists, estates, media entities, and other labels. Pawelski has also served or is serving on boards for the Recording Academy, Blues Foundation, Women in Vinyl, Joey's Song, the Recording Academy Producers and Engineers Wing, that's us, Farm Aid, and the Center for Recorded Music, and is one of the best exports ever to come out of Wisconsin. Welcome, Cheryl.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. Go Pack.
Get it in. Also joining us is the amazing Piper Payne, a mastering engineer based in Nashville, Tennessee. She's known for her dedication to audio quality and equality. After moving her mastering studio to Nashville, she ventured into vinyl manufacturing, opening physical music products, which, through Piper's innovations, has set industry-leading turn times and quality benchmarks. As a former national trustee of the Recording Academy and co-chair of the pe.wing steering committee, Piper actively promotes diversity and inclusion in the industry. With a background in music and a focus on technical excellence, she approaches mastering and manufacturing as a blend of feel and precision. It's true, can confirm. Piper shares her expertise in mastering and recording as an esteemed audio professor and frequent guest lecturer. Her impressive discography includes notable artists like Janis Ian, Madame Gandhi, Dolly Parton, The Go-Go's, and more.
Man, there's some serious credits here today.
Oh, yeah. Heavy hitter.
Yeah, no kidding. Which brings us to Morten Lindberg, one of my favorite producers of immersive audio. Morten's bio reads typically modestly for Morten. If you know Morten, you know that he's kind of just the facts kind of guy, although really fun after business hours. But anyway, Morten is from Norway. He's a recording producer and balance engineer with 46 American Grammy nominations since 2006. 38 of these in craft categories: Best Engineered Album, Best Surround Sound Album, Best Immersive Audio Album, and Producer of the Year. Founder and CEO of the record label 2L, and a Grammy Award winner in 2020. But I know Morten as a champion of quality audio and quality music production. Welcome, Morten.
Also with us today is Jett Galindo. Jett Galindo is a Los Angeles-based mastering engineer and vinyl cutter who has engineered for a wide range of albums, collaborating with artists such as Elvis Costello, Pinar Toprak, Billie Eilish, and RuPaul. She continues the legacy of her mentor, mastering legend Doug Sachs of the Mastering Lab. Beyond mastering, Jett serves as secretary on the Recording Academy's LA chapter board and is also a board member of Women in Vinyl, a nonprofit championing organization, education and representation in the vinyl industry. Jett has written over 30 published articles, that's amazing, on mastering for Isotope's Learn portal. Welcome, Jett. That also, I could go on and on about her bio as well.
It's an honor to be here and just be in the same room as my heroes in the music industry. I'm excited.
It should also be noted that our co-host today, Jordan, just came off of a successful live event production in New York City where she was musical director and put together this amazing group of artists for a live performance in New York. And so I gotta props for
Your
Jordan.
heroes. Something about being around your heroes is spurring us on to good and better things and like an amazing source of inspiration. So I feel you too, Jett.
Well done.
Well, physical media. What a time. What a time in history. And where does this media fit in? I'm excited to get in and hear all these perspectives. Is that too large, too zoomed out to start to say, why?
Why physical?
Yeah, I'm particularly thinking of like there are actually benefits in that I see right now of like why are we seeing this resurgence and what's at play? I think there's different people who are coming maybe for different reasons. Some that are maybe heavy audiophiles and some people who maybe don't break the seal on the record but want an artifact or something like that. So what's everybody seeing from their POV in terms of what you attribute this moment to?
I'd like to start off answering this question because for me, having this forum about just physical formats was so important because as a mastering engineer and just seeing working on music of different genres, there's this initial impression of digital media and streaming being the killer of physical media at the very beginning of its popularity. However, I think it's more important now than ever that physical products for music is here to stay because I think digital music discovery complements physical so much because I think more and more people are starting to realize that with the greater access to music discovery, with streaming of different formats, stereo, immersive, and then all this talk about AI and technology, people are starting to discover that the ownership of music is starting to be less of a thing and becomes more of a questionable matter with streaming platforms. Even if you're a premium subscriber where you can download, if a label or artist decides to pull off music from the streaming platform, even your download goes away. And physical is really one of the strongest ways for you to own music in addition to supporting your favorite artists. And we're starting to see that physical is becoming more accessible, not just for stereo, but like formats of different innovations in streaming. So I thought this was so important to have experts here in this call talk about that.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this. You
Yeah,
kind of brought
I
this.
hope that people that fans, if music is so important to you and you appreciate an artist so much that you might want to own their material and not have it go away. And in the physical world, it offers all of the great things that Piper does at her pressing plants. It's a bigger format, all the beautiful artwork, and I know that I think that goes a long way in your connection to the artist. And so I think, having a physical record collection also, it's it's a different way, it's a deliberate way of interacting with music, right? You have to go pull something off the shelf and you have to look at it and play with it, for me. And this is, I run a record company. I will sell you music any way you want it, but I really I interact with it in that very deliberate way, not as sort of wallpaper on my computer. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I am saying that I do want to pay attention to music because it means that much to me. It's very important to me. So I'm hoping that we're seeing a physical resurgence in everything from Blu-ray, surround immersive, to LPs, to cassettes, whatever you want it on. I do think though that the physical media is that important connection.
I think also it's never a question what we want to provide to the market. It's always a
Right.
question, what would the music consumers like to have? And of course, the streaming services offers an incredible convenience and an incredibly easy way of navigating and discover music. And that was for some years now, that has been everything about it. Suddenly the audience is starting to discover that what is easy given is also easy taken. And my background is for a pretty small label, working in classical and jazz. Our main audience is not the casual music consumer. It's more a collector, and they are very, very clear that they want both. They want to, all of them, subscribe to streaming services, to navigate, to have quick access to what happens, to have access on the go on their mobile devices. But as collectors, they are also building a repertoire for themselves. And as you said, Jett, the feeling of ownership. Not, I wouldn't. It's dangerous to say ownership to the music,
Yeah.
because that is a different definition. But ownership to the access to the music, that's very, very important for quite a large consumer base. However, we find also that this is very variable depending on geography and on culture. So from my home base in Scandinavia, it's all about streaming. And that comes down to people in general being very tech forward, and also our countries having a pretty good infrastructure for digital distribution. But then if we go to Central Europe, for instance, there's still a solid market for physical products. So to us, it's important both for the collector and also for us working with more kind of extreme audio formats, like very high resolution digital formats and also immersive formats. Physical is still a key to reaching our audience with a high quality experience.
Yeah, they don't have to be exclusive, right?
Yeah, no.
Right.
Yeah, they really can work in tandem, it seems like, at their best. I think about when you talk about owning music, I think about a personal music library. Sometimes I refer to that. And as an elder millennial, I, if you only Jet, I have seen, I have had CDs. I have subscribed to a BMG Music Club and paid my 1 penny for the 13 CDs or whatever it was, a pyramid scheme. But my parents had vinyl, and now I have that vinyl, and new vinyl is coming out. But I think about, the equivalent of like developing fans on MySpace. There's kind of a generation of like, if these DSPs are like, go away, which happens, even though it seems like it can't, it happens. And the next thing evolves. What do you want on that desert island of, you're back in 1940 or whatever, and you have to like, you have you don't have immediate access to songs that you want to hear and over. And that's such a, we've been talking about a lot from the listener perspective, but I think that's really important in all this. And I think they're really, who cares about this, that we're, it sounds like you're all really trying to bring your excellence to that listener who is looking for excellence and accessibility in the product.
And also, I mean, we've touched on a little bit of the business of making records as an artist, but I hope we get more into that. And then
Yeah.
also, someone's asking about the quality issues, but one of the reasons I got into making physical things was because I noted that my mastering clients weren't just auditory or oral expressionists, they're also visual expressionists. And Cheryl hit on it, which was that they want to have something that they can actually, that's tangible, that they can sell to the fan. People they're in the patron model, someone who can own part of that music, right? But the thing was that at the time in 2015, 2016, like when I was getting into making vinyl, artists weren't able to control how much their music was selling for, or how many copies were being made, or to whom they were selling. And making a physical product, CD, vinyl, any other thing that you want to make, from USB sticks to cassettes to to Blu-ray, the one thing that you can control when you do that, if you do it right, is how much you're selling it for and how many copies you're going to make. And then you can actually turn that into a scalable business as an artist if you do it right. And don't get me wrong, I mean, vinyl, which I know a lot about now after nearly a decade in the industry, and also being a mastering engineer and cutting records and working with artists and finding out what all of their challenges are as independent artists. It's really, really hard to make records. As a record maker, it's really, really hard to make records. There's just so many things that go into it, of course, and it's a very difficult process to get right. And so I hope that people realize that when you hold something tangible in your hand, it's because, even something as trivial as a CD, it has gone through so many iterations in so many people's hands. And even the most automated plants that are making these things are so human driven. And the process, if you do it right, is amazing. And even if you only kind of do it right, it's still really amazing.
But
Everything has to go
if I
right
may,
in order to make one record.
Yeah.
Everything has to go right over and over and over and
Yep.
over again to make
Very
lots and lots
true.
of records. And then you have to do it perfectly executed to make a great record.
It's an extremely
if I
physical
may
medium.
interject, Piper, because you're touching a very important point, and that's the point of handoff from the creator. With a physical product, I find that there is so much more intensity to the QC process when handing off than when you're doing a digital only product, where the attitude from the artists, everyone involved is, yeah, but we can upload a new version if someone reacts. So it takes us more into the software business where, okay, version 1 is never perfect. You can always update, but with a physical product, you have to make your very, very best effort. You have to control it up, down, from behind.
Well,
Because
also kind of
there's
like
so
that
much.
you have to commit too.
Yeah.
You're you have to understand, and Cheryl, I'm sure you go through this all the time, you know, running a record label with physical media as one of your commercial items. I mean,
Yep.
it's
It's
an alive thing. It's organic.
it's
It is
harrowing.
gonna have problems. It is a compromised vinyl. I mean, I'll just speak for
Yeah.
vinyl specifically because I think that's probably what a lot of the conversation here will be about. But you know, vinyl is a compromised format for audio anyway,
Right.
you know. And so then if you get into all of the things that can go wrong,
Right.
then yeah, those are glaring problems. But even when it goes perfectly and someone hears a little speck of dust, they forget that that's
It's
just an
analog.
alive thing. It's a little tiny piece of
Yeah.
metal riding in a microscopic groove. And of course, if you hit a piece of dust, it's going to make a noise.
Yeah. The hardest thing is, if I make a mistake, right? It's like that's a problem. So I can't really make mistakes because a lot of times you don't get a chance to fix it because if you sell through your run, that might be all the demand there is out there. So you never get to fix it. So you got to live with that problem. Ugh, that's bad. But the other thing that's very difficult about vinyl, especially for me, is we might get it all right, and then it leaves our hands when I approve the test pressing. And then, that speck of dust can fly into the, everything from the lacquer to the plating to the pressing. And they come with their pitchforks for me, you know. So that's it's vinyl is really tough, and it's also become, and CDs too to some degree, and I'm sure Blu-rays and DVDs, we don't make many of those in my world, but all the parts to make those things are getting more and more cost prohibitive. And I for one am a person that likes to put out records that everybody can participate in cost wise. I don't feel like I love making giant box sets too, and that's for the super fans. But I hate that everything has become so much more expensive. But since COVID, it just hasn't slowed down. And so, vinyl has become a really difficult thing to produce, both in cost and actually getting it right. It's very difficult. But when you do get it right and it is cool, and when it sounds great, it's great.
So we have a question in the chat that I thought was really interesting. It's a slight veering from the path, but this is a question for Jett and Piper from newcomer Leslie Ann Jones. Thank you for joining us.
Who's that?
Hey, Leslie.
Um, she would like to know, do you do a separate master for vinyl given the physical limitation of cutting records? How does that process work for you?
Jett, why don't you take
Sure.
this one
And
specifically about
and
mastering, and then I'll talk about the actual process of making a
100%.
record real fast.
And this is a good place for it too, because I actually worked with Jordan and Piper on a specific vinyl release for Lila Blue, right? And 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 to answer Leslie's question, I highly encourage educating the artist and the client producers on the virtues of having a separate vinyl cutting master. Even if it's a digital master that you deliver to the cutting facility or the pressing plant, but always you always have to work on the digital release first and make sure that the main master is approved, and then um prepare a digital cutting master just with a bit more headroom. And I actually wrote an article on Isotope, and I put it on the chat, that explains the limitations of the vinyl format, like what Piper said. Vinyl format is a compromise format. Remember, vinyl is a format that's been around for almost a century, with very little innovation in the format, and there's a reason for that. The limitations of the vinyl format is part of how special it is. But with the more innovations that happen in music, mastering engineers and cutting facilities and pressing plants need to be aware of the how of this technology of this digital music, and making sure that it translates as effectively as possible on this old format. And there are many ways that your mastering engineer is able to finesse the master in order to fit better on the format. And you can see on the chat an article along with listening examples of processing that happens in the mastering world that will help make your music sound better on vinyl. But yeah, that's exactly what we did for the artist that Jordan was producing. And when I prepared the digital cutting master and I cut the lacquer for that, or I think I cut the lacquer for that and shipped it over to Piper at physical music products.
Yeah, and things, you hit on a couple of interesting points there, Jett. Then and then I'll explain kind of how records get made. But it's amazing that now we have all this digital technology to manipulate the sound and manipulate the audio. And the issue is that a cutter head on a lathe can't reproduce a lot of. It's not just so much about the program length and how much bass or how much high end, which like those things will absolutely dictate the program length and where you're cutting and what, like depth
Exactly.
and spacing of the groove and everything. But even something like an edit that was improperly done and like not faded in Pro Tools, for instance, it will cause the cutter head literally can't stop like that the way that you can stop, stop the waveform in a digital file. The cutter head has to complete its motion, and if it's not given information to encode on the disk that it can actually replicate, it will cause all kinds of weird issues. So even something as simple as that, the way that music is created these days without a lot of housekeeping, I like to call it, it can cause all kinds of problems. And so I think that in that case, mastering becomes an even more relevant trade in the end, even once we have these physical formats going. And Morten alluded to it as well. There's more paying attention when there's a physical product involved, because the costs of fixing problems may outweigh the benefit of going back to fix that little problem that could have been avoided if we were all just paying closer attention and creating music for the format it's going on. It's one of the reasons I love Morten's work so much, is because he makes the music for the format. It's amazing. People don't do that in vinyl these days.
Yeah. And just to add to that too, certain genres lend itself better to the format of vinyl. And one of the more challenging ones for sure are the ones with like really high intensity, top end, like electronic, and then the really intense low end with a lot of like stereo imaging is going to be problematic as well. But yeah, if you're aware from the get-go, from the very beginning, that you are intending on releasing your music on the vinyl format, understanding the quirks of the format is so important in the production and engineering process. So
Might also add that let's say our general development pose a little bit of a challenge to that kind of focus you're talking about now, Piper. How the general attention span for us all has just shrunk down. So I find that when we're doing that final stage of mastering and going to physical product, I really have to set my mind into that in a very different way than we usually work, because it might be me getting old, but it seems to me like we're working a little bit different in general in production now than we did only 10 years ago. Am I right?
yeah.
Everything is broken down into shorter time spans to achieve the same kind of concentration. And this also goes, yeah.
It's the TikTok generation where like the 10 seconds of attention is what grabs people.
I'll try and explain how records get made in 10 seconds or less so that we don't lose anybody. You ready for this?
Go.
All right.
10 seconds.
Time me. Noodle, biscuit, pancake.
Oh, damn.
Now I'm hungry.
Okay,
It's always food.
Another minute.
Okay, so basically records are plastic. So I'll just talk about vinyl records, but CDs really, I mean, there's a different type of process to create the master for CDs, but there's still an electroplating and a pressing process for making CDs. So I'll just talk normal vinyl extrusion molding terms. So records are a piece of plastic PVC record compound, which is not completely dissimilar from like the stuff in your drains or like what this mic clip could have been made from. It's just plastic. Okay, it comes in pelletized from overseas. There are only a couple of plastic compounders in the United States, but they're all owned by the big evil corp out of Czech Republic. And all the plastic that most North American and European record manufacturers are using is either from China or from a couple of different spots in Europe. Comes in bags, in pellets. We put it into a hopper and then we heat it up, and it carries through an auger and gets pushed through a barrel that's heated up along the length of the barrel, and it gets squeezed out in like hot toothpaste, like a noodle. Then we do what's called a preform. So for all extrusion molding, you would make a preform of that hot plastic, and that's where the labels, depends on the press, but the labels get adhered. So the center label for the A side and the center label for the B side of the record are now joined with that biscuit or preform. Preform then gets carried into the center of the press, where you have a record mold, which each mold, there's two molds. Each one is 1/2 of the profile of the record. So if you cut it long ways, like a cheeseburger, and you have the top bun and the bottom bun, that's what the record mold kind of looks like. And then you have a nickel negative of the record that is now held on to the mold, and it basically is like a skin. So for every different record, for every different bit of music, we have a different side A stamper and a different side B stamper. The side A and B stamper are created from what folks like Jett and I do, cutting lacquer masters. So it's an actual physical disc of nitrocellulose lacquer laid over an aluminum blank, and it is then cut into on a record lathe. You're cutting the groove out of that lacquer, and then they're going to electroplate that. So they spray it with ionized silver, and then they put it into an electroplating bath, and it comes out as a nickel negative of the side A, and then you have a different one that's the nickel negative of the side B. If it's a double LP, you have a C and a D, and so on. Then that record, the preform with the labels, is now squeezed under about 2,000 pounds per square inch on a 100-ton record press. Just a 4-post hydraulic press, the same way you could make bamboo cutlery with, or air vents for a car. Like any process that you would make with an extrusion molding process gets made on a record press. It's the same thing. It just so happens that the dies, the molds, are shaped like 1/2 of a record each, and then the skin is the stamper. So the molds are filled with steam. Then we squeeze that plastic and we fill all the cavity of the mold and fill all the grooves. Then we flush that steam out with cold process water, cool that record back down so that the plastic can now set. Then the press will open, the molds will start to fill with steam again, and then the next biscuit preform will drop in. And then that one record that we just pressed will now go to the trimmer, and we'll trim off the excess, called flash. My plant, we recycle everything. So we will then put that flash right into a grinder and go right back to the hopper and recycle all of that waste material into new records. And then the record will go on a stack to cool and cure a little bit longer. And then it goes into a sleeve, a jacket, any other packaging, and then goes through the shrink wrapper into boxes and off to distribution, depending on whatever its end place is. But even just that little bit of a process that I've explained there, it's like 30 different steps just to make one record. Each record press will make about 2 records a minute. A good press and a good operator managing a few presses will be able to make about 1,000 records, sellable records per day, per press. There you go. I'm exhausted.
And again, noodle,
biscuit,
biscuit,
pancake,
Lunch.
which actually, funny enough, came from your client, Jordan. The Lila record, the little kids came to visit the plant, and I explained that process to him, and the little 4-year-old goes, "So noodle, biscuit, pancake?" And I was like,
that's so cute.
That was the children's record, the Rufus and
Yep.
Bee record.
Yep. Oh, sorry.
that's so
Yeah, that
cool.
was Rufus and B. I'm sorry, not Lila.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tiny frame.
I
Oh my
was
So
goodness.
Piper, I want the T-shirt from your pressing plant that has a noodle biscuit
Yeah.
and a pancake.
Noodle
Hey,
biscuit pancake. You got it.
large, size
When we
large.
sell out of the Be Kind Regrind t-shirts, I'll actually we don't sell them, we just give them away.
Okay, good.
I'm curious if preparing masters for especially for immersive, for example, Morten, for pure audio Blu-ray, do you prepare music differently for streaming versus physical? Because like what we just talked about now with vinyl, it's a different beast to just release music on vinyl. Is that the case for immersive?
No, not really, because it's all digital. So provided that the service, the transport is transparent, the prerequisites for how it should sound in a consumer or can sound in a consumer environment, it's basically the same. So there's a single file delivery for immersive.
That makes it easy.
Very easy.
And Cheryl, you were saying that your top physical export globally is CDs.
Correct. Yeah.
That was so
Um,
surprising to me.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been consistent, and we've had a lot of press around vinyl, and that's been nice. But I always have to remind people it never went away,
Mhm.
right? Even when it was tailing off, and digital was sort of rising in let's say 2000, I was still making 45s for jukeboxes when I was at Capitol. And and the high end, the audiophile vinyl labels that still exist today had been making it all vinyl throughout, you know. But we had this big CD boom, right? So and I think that, I think audiences, what I'm seeing is people that collected CDs in the 90s and 2000s, that's their vinyl, for people that are older, and so that format hasn't gone away either. And I've actually been encouraged, it's tiny and it doesn't get the gushing love that the vinyl has gotten in the press, but CDs are kind of like continuing to nudge up, especially globally. And I like that, I think there was timing abuse in the 90s where they got a little too long, right? But, as somebody who does historical, reissue work in box sets and whatnot, I like that space now to add bonus tracks and unissued material, because for an LP, for me to add material to something now, it becomes a 2 LP set, and that becomes very expensive. Whereas I can do one CD and give folks that are fans of that artist something new to listen to, and bang for the buck right there, you know. So, but every format has its drawbacks and its pluses, and that's why I say, it's nice that they all kind of can live in today's environment. Though just personally, I stream less, for what I was saying before, just because I listen deliberately. And not ambiently, I was the kid without the Walkman too, so, whatever.
But there's another
Luddite.
aspect of consuming music on physical format. Our buddy Eric Schilling, great engineer, said that owning music is a very tactile experience. You sit down with it, you look at the artwork, you read the credits. Now, this is particularly important because with the rise in, I mean, what out of a $29 billion music industry last year, $2 billion was for physical product, in terms of sales. That leaves $27 billion worth of the market where people don't really have much idea about credits. They don't know who produced, they don't know who mixed, they don't know who played on it. I mean, you sit down with a project, one of Cheryl's projects or one of Morten's projects, and you're going to learn something. There's a great deal of valuable information there. I mean, Where do you folks see that? And is that something that's going to disappear entirely if we continue down the digital path?
Not on records I make. But, we deliver digital booklets with all of the information and all of the artwork where they're accepted by the DSPs. How much people use them, because that's a very mobile format, right? I just don't know. I still know how much they get used, but we deliver them. So it was a roadmap to my career to read credits. So I hope it doesn't go away. It
Uh,
also led me to discover other artists and who songwriters were and producers were. And really, I mean, if you read all those credits, you realize that all music is interconnected somehow. Um, and that was a glorious revelation to me, you know. So I don't know. I think you probably have to work harder, maybe, to see credits in a digital format. I think you have to seek it out if you care about it. It's just not there. When you open an LP, it's there in the gatefolder. It's there on the sleeve that you pull out, or even on the back cover. You learn something. Yeah, on the LP labels, you learn something.
but
So
I still think a keyword here is if you care about it, because
yeah.
the majority of the audience or consumers of music, they don't care about those credits. The audience we're talking about, who actually sit down and do conscious listening and
Mhm.
seek out the booklet and graphics and everything, they don't subscribe to Spotify. They seek out a service of their own, like Qobuz or Tidal, which actually do have good metadata and the full production credits.
And Apple
If
Music too.
Mhm.
Apple Music is coming along,
Yeah.
a digression there, because I can't figure out why the Apple Music credits are only available on iOS and not on the desktop.
That's true,
So
the
if
desktop. But on the
anyone
web
knows someone in
browser, it does
Apple,
show.
nudge them.
Well,
But the
Maureen
thing
will
is
let me
that
know.
the services that do provide access to production credits, performance credits, and artwork, they rely on the labels to provide it.
Yeah.
And not only the labels to provide it, but also the labels aggregators to actually carry it through out into the services.
Mhm.
And then in the next step, it's for the services to actually choose to show that credit.
Yeah, we can't force it.
And
We
credit,
provide
And
it.
I also wanted to point out too that there's been greater like an acknowledgement of credits needing to be more accessible to the streaming world, but it is definitely different. The ability to just focus on the music and really have a ritual of like opening the jacket and looking at the credits. But on streaming platforms, there's been greater connectivity between like streaming platforms and credits databases like Muso.ai, Jaxsta, Discogs. And when you go to Muso.ai, it links directly to the music that's on Spotify. And hopefully there's a lot more integration in the future. But I'm grateful that credits are a lot more accessible now on the digital setting. Thanks to shout out to Muso.ai, Jaxsta, Discogs, and I hope all music just keeps improving their infrastructure. But yeah, Muso has been doing a lot of improvements.
that's a very grateful and generous read of it. I have been there. I'm just gonna counter or fill out the picture with the project line that you mentioned that I just MD'd was based, like crediting was the start point for me because I was trying to find female instrumentalists throughout recorded history. And it was so difficult for me. And I contributed to papers on crediting. I talk about crediting more than, I mean, this room are the people who talk about crediting. We know how important it is, but always trying to spread that message. And on some of the older recordings, it was just so difficult for a million reasons. Like in the pipeline, we keep identifying these. So I'm just excited to get back to resolution and crediting were more robust 25 years ago when, I was like, when we were talking about that 2000 mark, I was like high school to college. It was a pivotal time. And I'm surprised that it's taken us this long to get back. So I'm hoping the will and technology will converge in this moment, and it's going to get so much better, right?
Maybe in our enthusiasm, because we obviously all share an enthusiasm for a physical product and a high quality, conscious listening experience. We probably owe ourselves also to a couple of words about the challenges we face in physical distribution, because it's not only a hallelujah and this is the answer to all our problems in the ecosystem in the music business. There are some challenges out there.
Yeah, did any of those come to mind?
You want to start, Piper?
Oh, I would say the number one question we get asked at physical music products is, what's the lowest quantity we can press? And the number two question is, okay, after the whole thing's done and we say, okay, where do you want it shipped? And they go, I don't even know how I'm going to sell this thing. So, I just found that we had an opportunity to try and help the artists sell their records. We built a direct-to-fan fulfillment operation. So, we help with pre-sales and things like that. But it is really amazing how much money gets spent trying to distribute records. And our main selling point for that is like, why are we going to give the freight companies $1,000 for me to send this to Los Angeles for then you to spend 2 whole weeks putting everything into mailers and spending more money on postage and mailers and everything? Like, why don't we just keep it at the warehouse and we'll press on demand for you basically, and then ship out with your, the information you give us to send to your fans or send to the record stores or send drop ship to you on tour. If you're touring up the West Coast, why don't we send a box of 50 records to Seattle and Portland and San Francisco and LA, rather than the alternative, which is we spend a whole bunch of money trying to get them to you for Seattle, and then you got to carry them down. But that is a huge, huge problem. And there's a good distribution system for the majors, of course, and for big box stores. And that is something that is an insane amount of money that is passed along to the fan buying the record. It doesn't cost me any more money, really. I mean, all things considered, record compound's gone up a little bit. It's gone down a little bit. Nickel went up. Now it's back to normal. Paper went up. Now it's kind of back to normal. Things have shifted. Things have changed a little bit in the last 10 years of record making, but like a wholesale standard weight black record in a standard jacket still wholesales from me at low quantity for a certain amount and high quantity for a certain amount. My pricing has really not changed to make the record and to pass along to the person paying me to make the record. But the cost of a record in a store today is almost double what it was 10 years ago. And Cheryl, I'm sure you deal with that too, where you're like, you got to pay to distribute it. And then the fans are going to buy less because it's more expensive. And so then you got to build in all these extra inclusions and deluxe things to make them want to buy it.
Right.
And it's like, it's wild because Cheryl's not necessarily paying me a lot more money to make that record, but she has to charge her fans so much more money because she's got to now distribute it to them. And the people that are making the money are the majors and the distributors and the trucking companies and the shipping companies, to be honest.
Yeah. Because the other thing is, if I don't guess right about a
Yeah.
title that I'm going to press on vinyl,
Yep.
you get charged for what doesn't sell when it's sitting in the warehouse.
Yes.
Right. So,
And this is very different now than it used to be, because if say you're a medium-sized label and you work with an established logistic partner, going 20 years back in time, you would be on pretty much a joint venture with them, where they would earn their money by selling your products.
right.
When the local stores went down, physical popularity went down with the general consumers. What happened, at least in our experience, is that the logistic partners turned around from making their money forward. They turned around and started making their money backwards. So over the last say 5 years, we have had this insane increase in different fees. Warehouse fees, transport fees, packaging fees, transaction fees. So, as you said, Piper, what we earn on the product is about the same as it was 20 years ago, but the consumer pays twice.
Yeah. All
We're
our
not
costs.
Right.
Right.
getting that money.
Yeah, the costs have gone up, and here's the thing: if you are a medium-sized label, or I don't know, I still sort of feel like we're pretty small, but we're fortunate enough to have global distribution, which is great because for some reason people like us in Poland. I'm like, yeah, my people. But but the problem is I have to press X amount to send it all over the world, and if that title doesn't get ordered all over the world, it sits in a warehouse that I get charged for. So every month, my profitability from that title goes down. And it's exactly correct, Morten. It's the distributor who is, and not to vilify anybody, I'm really glad that I have global distribution so I can get my records to Poland, but the prices are just through the roof now.
Yeah, let me just say the distributors are not the villains.
Right.
They are having a rough time.
Yeah.
They are not getting rich on this, but their volume that they can earn money on is going down in total, and their costs are going up.
So let's look at a different side of the statistics for a moment. We all recognize and are aware of the fact that records don't sell in the dollar amounts that streaming is consumed. And it's so difficult to go through the supply chain, but still you have artists like Taylor Swift that are putting out multiple versions of their physical product. But a statistic came up in our pre-pro conversation yesterday that is still makes my head spin, which is that something like 30 to 50% of the physical product that gets sold never gets opened. It's like a knickknack or something. Piper,
New
help me
vinyl,
out
yeah.
here.
New vinyl sort of gets opened. Yeah. It's very funny because we do, yeah, I mean, of the thousands of records that we press and ship a week, only 50% of them will probably ever actually be opened. It's crazy. And it's obviously led me to, I mean, there's so much, I mean, this conversation needs to be like 4 hours long because there's so much more to, I mean, we've just scratched the surface here. Like even something as simple as like what happens to all of that plastic? We've been trying to build a recycling system that would be able to take that we actually will accept warehouse. We've even just in the last couple weeks, we've opened thousands and thousands of records that warehouses will send to us for recycling and turning into new records. So I'm trying to build in like a little credit system to have those majors send me records that then they can use to make new records. But yeah, it'll blow your mind when you think about all the work that we go through and the traumatic like process to make records. And yeah, of all of those ones that end up in the big box stores, a lot of them don't even get opened. They just go to the landfill.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But also for collectability. A lot of people,
yeah, people want to
yeah.
hold on. I mean, it's like a retirement plan or something.
That's true.
Like,
And I'm sure many vinyl collectors know this, but other people don't. If you go to discogs.com and catalog all your vinyl records, there's a way to like see the overall value of your collection, which is really interesting.
Yep.
It's less than
there's
you think.
a couple questions
Yeah, I
related
was
to
just gonna say.
That's true.
There's a couple questions related to mastering that have gone into the Q&A. I just was sort of answering them as we go. I don't know if you want me to pop through them with Jett real fast. Question is, if you master do you master 180 gram differently? No, because the grooves
No.
are not deeper. There's no difference between a 180 gram sound and
We
a
always do our
140 gram
best
sound.
with the lacquer. And
Yep.
then, yeah,
The lacquer is the
the
lacquer is the lacquer. The stamper is the
exactly.
stamper.
The choice of like going for the weight, it has more to do with, I'll have you talk about it, Piper, but it's not
It's just
mastering related.
marketing and stand a way to sell more plastic.
Correct.
Honestly, like a 180 gram versus a 140 gram record is not going to technically sound any different. It might feel a little different when you hold it. And I'm sorry, Cheryl, if you
Premium.
sell a lot of heavyweight records, I might destroy your
No,
sales
not
right
at all.
now. But
I'm
you know,
right
I
there with you.
personally, our standard weight is 140 gram, and that
Yeah.
refers to the weight of the preform, the biscuit part, after
Not
the
the
new
pancake.
for the pancake, actually including the pancake before the trimming. That refers to the finished weight of the record. And you lose about 20% of that. So to make a 140 gram record, we will make a 165 gram biscuit, because you have to fill a groove, and there's a bit of extra, and that's how the press moves the record around inside of it. It actually grabs onto that flash. And then we trim that off and then recycle that. But you know, same with 180 gram, we start with about a 205 gram biscuit and then trim off the excess. But yeah, it's literally just a slightly thicker record. And so the crazy thing is, plants that don't know how to make a good standard weight record and a good heavyweight record can actually cause all kinds of noise problems, because the more compound, the hotter the biscuit, the longer you have to squeeze it, and the longer you have to flush it with cold water. So that heat transfer that's like totally well dialed in on a 140 gram standard weight will actually start to cause all kinds of noise problems if the plant is not extremely good at heavyweight records. So don't always just buy the heavyweight record because you think it's going to sound better. The 140 gram record, I would always bet, would 99% of the time technically sound better because it hasn't had to get hit with so much heat and cold to make that record flat.
Right.
So Leslie Ann has a question about that, about the colored vinyl. Do you do anything different for colored vinyl? Is there a sonic difference
Yes.
between
Yes.
Oh
colored
Yes.
vinyl?
gosh.
The difference is simply that there's a lot more stabilizers and pigments put in, and so different colors will sound a little bit different, and also they will heat different. So we have to heat them up in the barrel a little bit differently, and then the timing of the squeeze and the water transfer will cause basically sound issues. So not only do like whites and blues and sometimes pinks, they sound not good. Clear colors, which are more of the acetate than PVC. That's just completely different stabilizers, just different ways of making that stuff. But clear color record will almost always sound better than an opaque record. A black record is a color record. It's just a really, really deep shade of purple, kind of like lacquer. And it in itself is a color, but most plants know how to treat black well. And so anytime you have to change off, it's all completely dependent on the operator and the system that they're running that will help that heat transfer to make the best sounding of that color possible.
All I can say to that too is avoid glow in the dark.
Glow in the dark sucks. Metallics are terrible.
Well, the ones with the sparkles in them.
Yeah, those sound usually not good, and not because I don't want to make lots of them, because they're very expensive to make and I can charge a lot of money, but they actually just don't sound that good.
They are.
So
They're
please
pretty.
don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a good one. Oh,
Somebody asked about the last track on the record. It's just that has to do with the way that it's cut and the sequence. Yeah, sometimes the last track on the side can matter how loud it is or what type of song it is. Absolutely. Checking test pressing. So there's a zone on my website. You can take a look, Jessica, about test pressing checks. I like to call them proofs, because when you call it a test, that means like you don't really know what you're testing.
That's
All
true.
we're doing in a quote test pressing or a proof is we're proofing the metal that was made from the lacquer that Jett cut, because we cannot listen to the master lacquer that Jett cut until we have the electroplated transfer of it, when that turns into metal that you can actually play. And usually to do that process is very expensive. And so we usually go all the way to where we do the quote test pressing, which was the first time we can create a vinyl record with that metal work to show what was actually cut on the discs.
You don't want to drop a needle on the lacquer for
No,
sure.
Don't ever do that.
No,
And then
because
speaking of there's a bunch of information. I'm happy to throw that on the
Just
the
before we
answer.
move on from that one, I liked too about the way Jessica was asking about for mix engineers.
Mhm.
Like, what should we be listening for? What are some sonic red flags that would warrant like if I hear it,
Insanely elevated surface. First of all, can the record
Surface
plant make a
noise.
flat record that's trimmed well with the label in the right place? So visually, does it look right? Second, is all the music correct? So is the program material right? That's the first thing. Is it the right band on the A side and the B side? Is the track listing and sequence correct? Then also, is there extremely elevated surface noise? And I'm not talking like a little bit of a like like vinyl noise that we all know is vinyl noise. I'm talking like something went wrong at the metal transfer from the lacquer, meaning that there was either a bad lacquer or there's like a bad silvering process or listen for distortion. You'll know that it's cutting distortion because it doesn't sound like analog, gooey, awesome, fun distortion.
It sounds like broken sibilants.
It sounds like a broken speaker. Yeah. Then also pops and ticks that were not present in the original audio, and pops and ticks that are consistent across all the pressing. So mastering engineers and mixing engineers, you should not just be getting one copy to evaluate. A test pressing or a proof is meant to be multiple copies to show that there is not a major issue across the metal itself that's present on multiple copies. If you hear one tick on one copy and it's not there on the others, it's an anomaly. Leave it alone. Maybe note it so that the plant can take a quick listen.
I might have to leave because this is giving me some PTSD.
Oh, no.
No, these are the bane of my existence. I am
Well, Cheryl, you
chasing
should
this
probably
stuff.
call me to make some records because in 5 years of record pressing now at PMP, I have had this many failed test pressings
Yeah.
total.
You know, here's the thing,
So
35 years of listening to test pressings.
the plant should be checking it. It
it'll
should
get
not
you
ever
under-
come to you with those issues. It should
I
not.
just want to stop
It's a
talking
failure.
about it, man.
I'm serious. I
It's so triggering.
built a QC system for record plants to use
Yeah,
that we use
that's
every day
awesome.
at PMP, and we check them
mhm.
before they go. And then
Yeah.
we very, very rarely have something come back that could have been
Yeah.
avoided.
Our plant does a pretty great QC,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that.
And before I just want to make sure that the answer about like the difference between like having music at the very innermost side of the diameter, I'm gonna link the article again because this article has a really good listening example of the same music cut at the outermost diameter and the innermost diameter, all settings the same. The difference is just astounding. Even Jonathan Weiner, when he was at Isotope, was like shocked at the difference. But all the listening examples there are so helpful for understanding how music translates to the vinyl format. So
I see that Maureen has joined us, which means that it's getting near
it's time.
time to go. But Maureen, do we have time for me to bring up immersive for just a brief moment?
Please.
Thank you. Immersive music consumption has a built-in impediment in that you have to have some very specific playback equipment in order to be able to enjoy the consumption of music. And because it at this point is only available in a physical form, it requires some very rare and getting rarer equipment. But Morten was just talking about a potential solution for streaming immersive music that might be an option. But Morten, do you ever see us moving away from physical for the distribution of immersive music?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Could be. But right now, a physical media is required to give you the highest quality of the experience. Or you could rely on downloading files where we can take the same content, the same master as we put into a pure audio Blu-ray, and we can encode it into an MKV file. that can be played as a download on multimedia players. But I think there's probably two sides to your questions, Glenn. One is the requirements to actually enjoy immersive music in your home, which is the hardware piece of it, an expensive speaker system. There's a substantial market for us in the home theater environment. So that's significant to making a pure audio Blu-ray. But of course, we have constantly emerging new solutions for this, which goes all the way from the 12, 14 speaker home entertainment room to headphone virtualization. And then we have all the smart gadgets in between, sound bars, small smart speakers, which are actually becoming rapidly good for the experience. But then on the other hand, how to get what we work with in our studio into the homes, the transport. And of course, Apple Music was incredibly important to get the whole ball running. Our problem is that the transport is currently so lossy. It's like a horrible MP3 coming home to your Apple TV. In the streaming market, there are actually this month or next month coming 2 new services that are streaming lossless 96K 714. So things are happening.
That's exciting.
That is exciting. As we wrap up, I'm curious, is there anything, you all have such unique perspectives, is there anything that you feel like we've missed or you want to bring to this particular producer and engineer community? And also maybe tell us and a lot of people were asking about where you're all based or if you have a company. So if people want to get you work on their physical music products, feel free to say that too.
Well, I see a lot of calls for a part 2, so.
Yeah, I think we need a part 2. This has been so educational, so informative, so interesting. So I hope you'll all be willing to come back again. And I want to thank everybody for joining us. And this conversation has been recorded, folks, so it will be posted on the Recording Academy's YouTube channel shortly. It takes a little while to get them up there, but it will be up there. But wow, such a great bunch of people with such a great knowledge. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you all for the great
Thank you, guys.
conversation.
Great
Thanks to
conversation.
host.
Until next time.
Bye.